Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into the golden sands and shimmering heat of ancient Nubia, a land that cradled some of history's most fascinating and frankly ridiculously skilled professionals, the barbers. Imagine, if you will, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples as you drift along the placid waters of the Nile. The air is warm, thick with the scent of spices carried on the breeze, and the distant rhythmic hum of life in a bustling city just beyond the riverbanks. You can almost feel the gentle current rocking your boat, hear the faint rustle of papyrus reeds, and envision the smooth, dark skin of the Nubian people, often adorned with intricate hairstyles and perfectly sculpted facial hair. It's a world where cleanliness was paramount, aesthetics were a form of worship, and the tools used to achieve such perfection were, well, unbelievably sharp. Seriously, we're talking about instruments that would make your modern-day barber's razor look like a butter knife. You probably won't survive this level of detailed history without at least a little bit of a snooze, but that's okay, that's the point, isn't it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from in the comments and what time it is for you right now. It's always cool to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the banks of the mighty Nile, the lifeblood of this ancient civilization, the very artery that nourished the heart of Nubia. This isn't the chaotic, bustling Egypt you might picture. Nubia, or Kush, as it was often known, was its own distinct powerhouse, a land of immense natural wealth and incredible cultural sophistication. For millennia, it sat to the south of Egypt, often intertwined with its northern neighbour, sometimes as a rival, sometimes as a conqueror, but always as a vibrant, independent entity. Picture broad plains stretching out, dotted with acacia trees, and beyond them the beginnings of the vast, unforgiving desert. But it's not just sand and sun. This land was a treasure trove. Gold, shimmering and abundant, flowed from its mines, giving Nubia its ancient moniker, Tarseti, the land of the bow, or land of gold. This precious metal wasn't just for adornment. It was the bedrock of their economy, attracting merchants and empires alike. Beyond gold, Nubia boasted rich deposits of copper, a vital resource in an age before widespread iron use, and diorite, a hard, dark stone prized by sculptors across the ancient world. Timber, incense, and exotic animal products, like ivory and ostrich feathers, also moved through its well-established trade routes. Imagine long caravans of donkeys and camels, laden with goods, trudging across the desert, their drivers wrapped against the sun, guided by the stars. Or envision sleek papyrus boats, their sails billowing, gliding down the Nile, ferrying precious cargo northwards. This geographical position, linking Central Africa with Egypt and the Mediterranean world, made Nubia a crucial intermediary, a crossroads of cultures and commodities. You might think of it as the original Amazon fulfillment center, just, with fewer drones and more crocodiles. Historians still argue whether this constant flow of trade made Nubia perpetually rich or simply a tempting target for more powerful neighbors. What's undeniable is that this wealth permeated every aspect of Nubian society, from its grand temples and royal pyramids. Yes, they had more pyramids than Egypt, believe it or not, to the daily routines of its people, including their surprisingly sophisticated grooming habits. This prosperity wasn't just for the elite, It filtered down, influencing everything from the food on their plates to the tools in a barber's kit. Even the common person, it seems, valued cleanliness and appearance, a reflection of a society that placed a high premium on order and beauty. It's almost as if they knew that good hygiene was the first step to conquering the world, or at least looking really good while you tried. You're still there, aren't you? Good. Now, let's move a bit further into the heart of Nubia, because understanding the Barbers means understanding the Nile. You see, while gold might have been their currency, the Nile was their very breath. Forget the hustle and bustle of modern cities. For ancient Nubians, life revolved around this colossal river. It wasn't just a convenient waterway for trade, though it certainly was that, allowing goods to flow north to Egypt and beyond, and bringing exotic treasures back south. No, the Nile was a cosmic clock, dictating the rhythms of planting and harvesting with its annual, predictable flood. You know how your alarm clock jolts you awake every morning? The Nile was like that, but for an entire civilization, reliably announcing the start of their agricultural year. Imagine the lush green strips of fertile land stretching along both banks, a vibrant contrast to the surrounding desert. This narrow band of cultivated earth was where most Nubians lived, farmed, and built their homes. The river provided abundant fish, crucial for their diet, and its waters, even if sometimes murky from floodwaters, were the source of all life. It was their highway, their grocery store, and their spiritual center all rolled into one. From birth to death, the Nile was inextricably woven into their existence. You can practically hear the rhythmic dip of oars, the chatter of market-goers on its banks, and the splash of children playing in its shallows. This deep connection to the river shaped their very worldview, their art, and even their personal habits. Cleanliness, for example, was not just a matter of aesthetics. It was deeply ingrained in their daily rituals, often tied to the purifying waters of the Nile. Think about it. If your entire world revolves around a massive body of water, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in it, right? This natural emphasis on water and washing meant that professions centered around personal care, like barbering, naturally rose in prominence. Historians still argue whether the Nubians adopted their extensive bathing rituals from the Egyptians, or if it was an indigenous practice, born from the sheer availability of water and the hot climate. Regardless, a clean body and a well-groomed appearance were hallmarks of a respectable Nubian. It's a bit like how in modern times you wouldn't show up to a fancy dinner in your pyjamas, though, let's be honest, sometimes after a long day, that sounds pretty appealing. This constant interaction with the Nile also influenced the development of tools. Materials like clay for pottery, reeds for mats and baskets, and specific types of stone for grinding were all readily available from the river environment. And, when it came to grooming, the smooth, worn river stones were perfect for sharpening. The barber, then, wasn't just working in isolation. Their craft was intrinsically linked to the river's bounty. They understood the properties of the local materials, using them to create increasingly sophisticated tools. So, the next time you hear a gentle gurgle or trickle of water, maybe, just maybe, you'll think of the ancient Nubian barber diligently honing their craft by the grand, life-giving Nile. All right, settled back in? Good. Because we've established the setting, the Nile, the gold, the heat. Now let's talk about the stars of our show, the barbers themselves. Forget the guy who just buzzes your hair at the strip mall. In ancient Nubia, a barber was so much more than someone who simply trimmed your split ends. They were respected members of the community, often holding positions of influence and even spiritual significance. Their craft wasn't just a mundane task, it was an art, a science, and sometimes a sacred ritual. Imagine them, standing tall and proud, perhaps adorned with simple but elegant jewellery, their movements precise and confident. They weren't tucked away in some back alley. Their presence was central to the daily life of the village or city. You'd find them in bustling marketplaces, in homes, and even, as we'll discover, within the sacred precincts of temples or royal palaces. Their social standing was far higher than what we might associate with modern barbers. This wasn't just about cutting hair, it was about shaping identity, maintaining hygiene, and often participating in important life events. Their roles were incredibly diverse. Beyond the obvious haircutting and shaving, they were also skilled in styling elaborate wigs, a huge fashion statement in both Nubia and Egypt, and applying cosmetics. Think of them as proto-stylists, dermatologists, and even, in some cases, healers. They possessed an intimate knowledge of herbs, oils, and other natural remedies, which they used for skin care, hair treatments, and even minor ailments. You might have gone to your barber, not just for a trim, but for a soothing balm for a rash, or a special oil to make your hair shine. It's like they were the local pharmacist and beauty influencer, all rolled into one. And unlike some of today's influencers, they probably didn't try to sell you a dubious detox tea. This elevated status wasn't arbitrary. In a society that valued appearance and hygiene so highly, the people who helped maintain these standards were naturally esteemed. Cleanliness was often equated with godliness, and a well-groomed person was seen as being in harmony with the cosmos. A barber, therefore, was performing a vital service that went beyond mere aesthetics, touching upon spiritual and social well-being. Historians still argue whether the highest-ranking barbers held direct political power or if their influence was purely social and ceremonial. What's clear is that they were indispensable. You'd often see them carrying their tools in a small, decorated pouch or box, a symbol of their trade and expertise. Their hands, you can imagine, were strong and nimble, accustomed to the delicate work of shaping hair and skin. They were privy to gossip, confidences, and the intimate details of people's lives, making them trusted confidants as much as craftsmen. So, as you drift deeper into this tale, remember, the Nubian barber wasn't just a tradesman. They were a cornerstone of their community, a master of their craft, and a silent guardian of beauty and well-being in the land of gold. All right, let's take a mental journey back to the very, very beginning, before anyone had figured out how to make a blade truly sharp. Imagine you're a Nubian ancestor, living tens of thousands of years ago, and you've got hair, lots of it, not just on your head, but everywhere. And in a hot, dusty climate, long hair and excessive body hair can be a real nuisance. It gets tangled, it attracts pests, it's just uncomfortable. This is where the concept of the first snip comes in, albeit a rather crude one. Early attempts at grooming weren't about fashion, they were about survival and practicality. You can envision our ancestors using whatever was at hand. Perhaps they'd rub two rough stones together, attempting to create a sharp edge, or maybe they'd use particularly sharp flakes of obsidian or flint. Think about trying to cut your hair with a really dull kitchen knife. It's less cutting, more tearing, isn't it? That was probably the reality for quite a long time. The goal wasn't a neat bob, it was just to reduce the bulk, to get rid of some of the heat, or to remove hair that might snag on thorny bushes or get in the way during a hunt. Sometimes hair might have been singed off using fire. Imagine the smell. Not exactly a pleasant salon experience, and probably left you smelling like a barbecue. Or perhaps They used abrasive sand and water, essentially sanding the hair down, which would have been a long, tedious, and probably painful process. It's a far cry from the comforting hum of an electric shaver, that's for sure. These were pragmatic solutions born out of necessity, driven by the harsh realities of ancient life. The idea of trimming was probably more akin to hacking or pulling. You can almost feel the uncomfortable tugging and tearing just thinking about it. Over time, though, as early humans developed more sophisticated tools for hunting and daily life, these innovations slowly began to trickle into personal care. A sharper flint arrowhead wasn't just good for bringing down a gazelle. Its carefully flaked edge could also be used with extreme caution to scrape away unwanted hair. This was the nascent stage of the barber's craft, born not of luxury, but of the fundamental human desire for comfort and efficiency. Historians still argue whether the earliest forms of hair removal were primarily for hygiene, ritual, or simply to reduce the chances of parasitic infestations. It was likely a combination of all three. The development of these early tools marked a significant step in human ingenuity. It showed a shift from merely adapting to the environment to actively shaping it and shaping themselves. It wasn't about finding a rock that happened to be sharp. It was about making a rock sharp, deliberately, with a specific purpose in mind. So, the next time you effortlessly run a comb through your hair or grab a razor for a quick shave, spare a thought for those earliest Nubians painstakingly attempting their very first snips with tools that were, by modern standards, unreasonably blunt. It makes you appreciate how far we've come, even in the seemingly simple act of a haircut. Okay, now let's fast forward a bit from those early, rudimentary attempts. We're moving out of the Stone Age, folks, and into a period where humanity started getting really clever with metal. Specifically, we're talking about copper, the revolutionary edge. Imagine the excitement, the sheer wonder, when early metal workers in places like ancient Nubia discovered that certain rocks, when heated in a very specific way, would yield a new, malleable, and surprisingly strong material. This wasn't just a new tool, it was a paradigm shift, especially for those in the grooming business. Copper was one of the first metals extensively used by humans, and Nubia, as you recall, had plenty of it. Unlike stone, which flakes and chips unpredictably, copper could be hammered, shaped, and most importantly for our story, sharpened to a consistent, surprisingly fine edge. This was a game changer for barbers. Suddenly, they weren't just tearing and scraping, they were cutting. Think about the difference between trying to carve wood with a jagged rock versus a relatively sharp chisel. It's like going from finger painting to actual portraiture. The earliest copper razors were probably quite simple, a thin, flattened piece of copper, possibly with a small handle. But even these basic forms offered a level of precision and control that was previously unimaginable. You could achieve a much cleaner shave, a more defined haircut, and far less irritation. This wasn't just about comfort, it was about aesthetics. With copper tools, the Nubian barber could begin to sculpt, to create styles that were previously impossible. They could outline beards with crisp lines, create intricate patterns in shaved heads, and really elevate the art of grooming. The process of making these tools was itself a skilled craft. Copper had to be mined, then smelted, heated to extract the pure metal, and then hammered into shape. This cold working actually hardened the copper, making it tougher and capable of holding a better edge. Imagine the rhythmic clang of hammers on metal, the glowing coals of a forge, and the smell of smoke mingling with the dry desert air. It was a laborious process, but the results were worth it. These tools weren't just instruments, they were precious commodities, often passed down through generations of barbers. Historians still argue whether the initial development of metal tools for shaving was driven by practical hygiene needs or by an emerging fashion sense that favoured smooth skin. It's likely both. As cleaner shaves became possible, the desire for them probably grew. The availability of copper tools meant that practices like head shaving, which was common among priests, and sometimes the general populace for ritualistic or hygienic reasons, became far less arduous and more precise. It's safe to say that the advent of copper razors put a serious dent in the demand for singed hair and painful rock scraping. So, as you relax, imagine the quiet satisfaction of a Nubian client feeling the smooth glide of a newly sharpened copper blade, a revolutionary edge in an ancient world. From the warm gleam of copper, we now glide smoothly into the era of bronze, a sharper tomorrow. If copper was a revelation, bronze was a quiet revolution. You see, copper, while a huge step up from stone, has its limitations. It's relatively soft, meaning its edge dulls quickly and it's prone to bending. But ancient metallurgists, ever curious, discovered that if you added a small amount of tin to copper, you created an alloy, a mixture of metals, that was significantly harder, stronger, and could hold a much finer, sharper edge. This new material was bronze. Imagine the excitement amongst the Nubian barbers when these new bronze tools started appearing. Suddenly, their razors weren't just sharp, they were sharper, and they stayed that way for longer. This meant more efficient shaves, less resharpening during a single client session, and ultimately a better, more comfortable experience for everyone involved. It's like upgrading your basic kitchen knife to a high-carbon steel chef's knife. Same function, vastly superior performance. This wasn't just about a marginal improvement, it was about opening up new possibilities for intricate styling and a level of precision previously unattainable. The process of creating bronze was more complex than pure copper. It required not just mining copper, but also sourcing tin, which was often less common and had to be traded over longer distances. This added to the value and prestige of bronze tools. A barber wielding a bronze razor was likely seen as more skilled, more successful, and certainly more well-equipped than one still relying solely on copper. You can picture them proudly displaying their burnished bronze implements, reflecting the warm Nubian sun. With bronze, the designs of razors and other grooming tools also became more refined. The metal's greater strength allowed for thinner blades, more delicate handles, and more specialized shapes. Perhaps a barber might have a broad razor for large areas and a smaller, pointed one for intricate detail work around the eyes or mouth. The tools themselves became works of art, testament to both the metal worker's skill and the barber's elevated status. This was the dawn of truly professional grooming. Historians still argue whether the widespread adoption of bronze tools in Nubia was a result of local innovation or primarily through trade and cultural exchange with neighbouring civilizations like Egypt. What's clear is that the Nubians were quick to embrace this superior material, integrating it seamlessly into their thriving grooming culture. It allowed for the development of even more elaborate hairstyles and precise shaves, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in ancient personal care. You might even say it was the upgrade that finally made ancient grooming, well, sharp. So, as you drift deeper into this historical reverie, picture the glint of bronze, a silent promise of an even sharper tomorrow for the diligent Nubian barber. From the lustrous gleam of bronze, our story takes another leap forward, landing squarely in the age of iron. The ultimate blade. This was the really big one, folks. While copper and bronze were fantastic for their time, iron was a game changer of epic proportions, and it eventually rendered many older metal technologies obsolete. Imagine the sheer wonder, and perhaps a little fear, when ancient smiths first figured out how to work with this stubborn, abundant, but incredibly powerful metal. Iron, when properly worked and hardened, could achieve an edge that was far superior to anything bronze could offer. It was tougher, more durable, and could hold its sharpness for an astonishingly long time. For the Nubian barber, this meant a tool that was not only incredibly effective at removing hair, but also incredibly resilient. No more frequent resharpening after just a few clients. An iron razor could maintain its formidable edge through many uses. It's like swapping out a flimsy plastic knife for a laser-sharp, professional-grade steel blade. The difference was night and day. The process of working iron was also more demanding than copper or bronze. Iron ore had to be heated to much higher temperatures in specialized furnaces, and then painstakingly hammered and folded, a process known as forging, to remove impurities and strengthen the metal. This was a noisy, smoky, and physically demanding craft, transforming raw earth into a tool of incredible precision. The smith, therefore, was a figure of immense importance, almost magical in their ability to tame this powerful material. You can almost hear the rhythmic clang, clang, clang of the hammer on the anvil echoing across the Nubian landscape. The introduction of iron tools allowed for even finer, more delicate work. Razors became thinner, potentially more curved to hug the contours of the face, and capable of incredibly precise lines. This pushed the boundaries of grooming artistry even further. Intricate patterns, elaborate shaves, and perfectly sculpted facial hair became not just possible, but commonplace for those who could afford the services of a barber equipped with these superior blades. Historians still argue whether the knowledge of ironworking diffused into Nubia primarily from regions further north, like Egypt and the Levant, or if the Nubians independently developed or refined these techniques given their rich mineral resources. What's undeniable is that iron technology took root deeply in Nubia, becoming a cornerstone of their material culture, from weapons and agricultural tools to, crucially for us, the barber's ultimate blade. The city of Meroe, in particular, became a renowned centre for iron production in ancient Nubia, its slag heaps still standing as testament to an industrial past. So, as you drift further into your slumber, picture the sharp, formidable edge of a Nubian iron razor, a symbol of their advanced technology and their commitment to the art of grooming. Okay, we've talked about the metals, copper, bronze, and iron, each one providing a sharper edge than the last. But a blade, no matter how perfectly forged, is useless without constant maintenance. This brings us to the quiet, meticulous art of sharpening stones. An art. Imagine a Nubian barber, perhaps at the end of a long day or the beginning of a new one, carefully and rhythmically working their blade against a stone, the faint shoosh, shoosh sound filling the air. This wasn't just some quick rub, it was a precise, practiced ritual that was absolutely critical to their profession. Just like a chef constantly hones their knives, a Nubian barber knew that the quality of their shave depended entirely on the sharpness of their tools. A dull blade isn't just inefficient, it's painful, causing pulls, nicks, and irritation. And in a time before antiseptics were widely understood, a clean, precise cut was also a safer cut, less prone to infection. The choice of sharpening stone was vital. Nubians would have used various naturally occurring abrasive stones, likely sourced from riverbeds or local quarries. These stones would have had different grits, from coarser ones for initially shaping an edge or repairing a nick, to incredibly fine-grained stones for putting on that final, mirror-like polish that made the blade truly wicked sharp. Think of it like sandpaper, but for metal, you start with the rough stuff and move to the superfine for that silky smooth finish. The technique involved was often passed down through generations. It wasn't something you could just pick up overnight. It required a steady hand, a keen eye, and an understanding of the blade's geometry. You had to hold the blade at just the right angle, apply consistent pressure, and move it in specific patterns to create a symmetrical, effective edge. Imagine the subtle changes in the sound as the blade moved across the stone, indicating whether the angle was perfect or slightly off. It was a sensory experience, a dance between human and tool. Historians still argue whether the most prized sharpening stones were local finds or traded from distant lands, valued for their unique abrasive qualities. What's certain is that the barbers themselves were masters of this skill, capable of bringing a dull piece of metal back to life with patience and precision. They might have even used a little water or oil on the stone to help carry away the metal particles and create a smoother action. This wasn't just maintenance, it was an extension of their craft, a testament to their dedication to providing the best possible service. So, as you drift off, picture the ancient barber, hunched over their stone, carefully coaxing the ultimate edge onto their blade, ensuring every shave was as smooth as silk. Alright, with those perfectly honed blades in mind, let's get specific. We're going to examine the very instruments themselves, razor designs, form and function. You might imagine a single, generic ancient razor, but like modern shaving implements, Nubian razors came in a fascinating variety of shapes, each likely designed for a particular purpose, reflecting the nuanced demands of their grooming practices. Think about it. You wouldn't use a massive butcher knife to peel an apple, right? Same principle applied here. While we don't have a complete catalogue of every single razor design, archaeological finds and artistic depictions offer tantalizing glimpses into their world of specialized blades. You can envision large, broad razors, perhaps with a slightly curved edge, perfect for swiftly clearing large areas of the head or body. These would have been the workhorses, designed for efficiency and speed. Then there would have been smaller, perhaps more pointed razors, designed for intricate work. Imagine the barber meticulously shaping a goatee, or creating those incredibly precise lines that often demarcated a clean-shaven face from a carefully styled beard. These tools would have required immense dexterity and a steady hand, much like a surgeon's scalpel today. Some might have even had slightly different handle designs, perhaps a loop for the finger or a textured grip, to allow for greater control during these delicate operations. Beyond the practical, there was also the aesthetic. Many razors, especially those belonging to high-status barbers or used for elite clientele, would have been beautifully crafted. Handles might have been made from polished wood, bone, or even ivory, sometimes inlaid with decorative elements. The blades themselves might have been polished to a mirror sheen, or even subtly etched with patterns. These weren't just tools, they were statements, reflecting the barber's skill and the client's wealth. It's a bit like how some people collect fancy fountain pens today. They're functional, yes, but also objects of beauty and status. Historians still argue whether certain razor shapes were culturally specific to Nubia, or whether they mirrored designs found in neighbouring Egypt, suggesting a shared grooming culture. What is clear is that the evolution of razor design closely followed the advancements in metallurgy, with iron allowing for thinner, more specialized, and ultimately sharper blades than ever before. You can picture the Nubian barber, perhaps carefully unwrapping their favoured razor, feeling its balance in their hand, and preparing to transform a client's appearance with a few deft strokes. This wasn't just about removing hair, it was about shaping identity, sculpting style, and demonstrating mastery over truly remarkable tools. So, as you settle deeper into your sleep, imagine the subtle variations in these ancient blades, each a testament to purpose-driven design in the hands of a skilled artist. Now that we've admired the sharpness of the blades, let's turn our attention to their equally important, though perhaps less dramatic, companions, combs and picks. Beyond utility. You might think, oh, a comb, that's simple, right? Not so fast. In ancient Nubia, these grooming tools were far more than just implements for detangling. They were often works of art, imbued with symbolic meaning, and could even serve as powerful indicators of social status. Imagine holding a Nubian comb in your hand. It wouldn't be the flimsy plastic thing you might have in your bathroom drawer. Instead, it might be carved from lustrous wood, perhaps ebony or acacia, or meticulously crafted from bone or ivory. The teeth would be carefully spaced and polished, designed to glide through thick, often braided or adorned, hair without snagging. Some combs might have had fine teeth on one side for intricate styling and wider teeth on the other for detangling. It's like having a whole styling kit in one elegant piece. But these tools weren't just about function. They were frequently decorated. You might see intricate geometric patterns, carved animal motifs, perhaps a lion or a crocodile, creatures important in Nubian symbolism, or even tiny representations of human figures. These weren't just random decorations. They were often symbols of protection, fertility, or status. A comb could be a personal amulet, cherished not just for its utility, but for its inherent beauty and spiritual significance. And then there were the picks. Given the prevalence of elaborate braids, extensions, and wig styling in Nubian culture, picks would have been indispensable for separating strands, creating intricate partings, and adding volume. These could be long, slender tools, often with a pointed end, again meticulously carved and decorated. Think of a modern hair pick, but elevated to an art form. The materials themselves spoke volumes. While a common person might have a simple wooden comb, an elite Nubian would possess combs and picks made from precious materials like ivory, often adorned with gold or semi-precious stones. These weren't just for personal use. They were often included in burial goods, ensuring the deceased maintained their perfect appearance even in the afterlife. Historians still argue whether certain comb designs were purely aesthetic or if they held specific ritualistic purposes, perhaps used in ceremonies. You can almost picture a Nubian queen, her hair meticulously styled by her personal barber, with the aid of an exquisitely carved ivory comb reflecting her wealth and power. Or a common villager, using a sturdy, well-worn wooden comb to keep their own practical hairstyle neat. These seemingly simple tools were, in fact, powerful reflections of Nubian artistry, social hierarchy, and their deep-seated appreciation for personal adornment. They remind us that even the most everyday objects can carry profound cultural meaning. So, as you drift into dreamland, consider the quiet elegance of these ancient combs and picks, tools that went far beyond mere utility. Having explored the tools of the trade, let's now consider one of the most prominent practices these Nubian barbers engaged in: hair removal, head to toe. You might assume ancient people were generally hairier than us, but in ancient Nubia, and indeed much of the ancient world, there was a widespread societal obsession with smooth, hairless skin. This wasn't just a fleeting trend, it was a deeply ingrained cultural norm. driven by factors ranging from hygiene to aesthetics and even religious belief. Imagine the feeling of dust, sweat, and perhaps even sand clinging to body hair in that hot, arid climate. Removing hair would have offered a significant practical benefit in terms of cleanliness and comfort, reducing issues like skin irritation and parasitic infestations. You can almost feel the relief of a cool breeze on freshly shaven skin after a long, sweltering day. It's a bit like how we appreciate air conditioning after being out in the summer heat, pure, unadulterated comfort. But beyond practicality, there was a strong aesthetic preference for hairless bodies. Depictions in art show Nubians, both men and women with smooth skin, often adorned with jewelry or intricate patterns. For men, a clean-shaven face was common, though beards could also be meticulously styled, as we'll discuss later. For women, body hair removal was almost universal. This wasn't about conforming to a single, narrow beauty standard, but rather achieving a state of smooth, clean elegance that was highly valued. The methods employed for hair removal were varied and sometimes quite inventive. Besides the incredibly sharp razors we've discussed, Nubians likely used depilatory creams made from natural ingredients, perhaps even some rather pungent concoctions. Think of early forms of waxing, using resin or sugar-based mixtures, which would have been effective but probably quite painful. Historians still argue whether certain abrasive techniques, like rubbing skin with pumice stones or fine sand, were also common forms of exfoliation and hair reduction. What's clear is that they had multiple strategies for achieving that desired smooth finish. The barber's role in this was central. They were the experts in wielding those sharp blades safely and effectively across all parts of the body. A trip to the barber wasn't just for a head shave, it could be for a full body treatment, ensuring every inch of skin met the prevailing standards of beauty and hygiene. This dedication to hair removal speaks volumes about Nubian culture's emphasis on presentation and their sophisticated approach to personal care. So, as you drift further into your sleepy state, picture the Nubian dedication to smooth skin, a practice as meticulous then as it is for many people today. Alright, with hair removal mastered, let's turn to the creative side of ancient Nubian grooming: wigs, status, and style. Forget your Halloween costume wigs. In ancient Nubia, as in Egypt, wigs were not just accessories. They were integral to personal identity, social status, and often religious expression. They were elaborate, meticulously crafted, and an absolute cornerstone of high fashion. Imagine stepping into a Nubian nobleman's home and seeing not just their wardrobe, but an entire collection of wigs, each designed for a different occasion: a formal ceremony, a casual outing, or perhaps even a trip to the afterlife. These weren't synthetic hairpieces. They were usually made from human hair, sometimes sheep's wool, or even plant fibers, carefully braided, curled, and woven onto a mesh cap. The skill required to create such wigs was immense, making wig makers, who were often the same individuals as barbers, highly sought-after artisans. The variety of styles was astonishing. You might see short, tight curls, long, flowing tresses, or intricate braided designs, sometimes adorned with gold beads, semi-precious stones, or fragrant oils. The colour often varied too, from natural dark shades to black, sometimes enhanced with plant-based dyes. A well-maintained wig was a sign of prosperity, sophistication, and good taste. It's a bit like owning a collection of designer handbags today. Each one serves a purpose, but also broadcasts your social standing. Wigs served multiple purposes beyond just aesthetics. In the hot climate, they provided a layer of protection from the sun, while allowing the scalp underneath to remain clean and free from pests, especially if the wearer's natural hair was shaved or kept very short. They also offered a degree of privacy and anonymity. You could change your appearance simply by changing your wig. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for wearing wigs was practical protection from the sun, or purely a matter of fashion and social display. It was likely a blend of both. The barber's role in the world of wigs was crucial. They weren't just responsible for cutting and styling natural hair, they were the designers, creators, and maintainers of these elaborate hairpieces. This involved cleaning, restyling, and repairing damaged wigs, ensuring they always looked perfect. You can imagine a barber meticulously brushing out a wig, applying scented oils, and carefully arranging the curls before a client's big event. This wasn't just a service, it was a partnership in crafting a public image. So, as you drift off, picture the grandeur of Nubian wigs, a testament to an ancient civilization's dedication to elaborate status and impeccable style. Okay, we've covered heads, both natural and wigged, so let's shift our gaze downwards to the chin. For Nubian men, the choice of a beard style was far from arbitrary. It was a powerful statement, carrying complex layers of meaning related to age, status, and even religious devotion. While some men maintained a clean-shaven look, others cultivated beards that were meticulously shaped and groomed, transforming facial hair into an elaborate form of self-expression. Imagine seeing a Nubian man with a perfectly sculpted square beard, perhaps meticulously trimmed to a specific length and outline, or another with a long, narrow beard, carefully braided or twisted, possibly even enhanced with extensions or interwoven with gold threads. These weren't just let-it-grow beards, they were deliberate artistic creations, each strand testament to the skill of the barber and the dedication of the wearer. It's like the difference between a rough lumberjack beard and a carefully maintained, award-winning competition beard. Both are beards, but one has a significant amount of thought and effort behind it. The meaning behind these styles could vary. In some cases, a full beard might signify maturity, wisdom, or a connection to certain deities. In others, a specific style might be reserved for royalty or high-ranking officials, acting as a visible badge of authority. Think of the false beards worn by Egyptian pharaohs, often made of gold and lapis lazuli, symbolizing their divine kingship. While Nubian practices were distinct, there's a strong likelihood that beards carried similar symbolic weight, distinguishing individuals within the social hierarchy. The barber's role here was paramount. They were the sculptors of these facial masterpieces. Using their incredibly sharp razors, they would meticulously outline the beard, trim it to the desired length, and perhaps even apply oils or balms to keep it lustrous and manageable. Achieving perfect symmetry and sharp lines required immense skill and a steady hand. You can almost feel the light, precise touch of the barber's blade as they define a jawline, creating a look that was both fashionable and meaningful. Historians still argue whether specific beard styles were associated with particular Nubian gods or if they simply followed aesthetic trends. What's clear is that a man's beard was a deliberate choice, often reflecting his identity and aspirations within Nubian society. It wasn't just hair, it was a canvas for personal and public declaration. So, as you drift into a deeper sleep, picture the intricate artistry of ancient Nubian beard styles, each one a silent but powerful statement in the golden land of Kush. Word count 1004. Awaiting continue. Section 14. Having traversed the intricacies of head and face, let's now venture into an area that might surprise you. Body hair. a public display. In many ancient cultures, and certainly in Nubia, attitudes towards body hair were markedly different from many modern Western norms. While hair removal on the head and face was common for aesthetic and hygienic reasons, the approach to other areas of the body was sometimes quite varied, and in some contexts, specific body hair, or its absence, could be quite significant. Recall our earlier discussion about the general preference for smooth skin for hygiene and comfort in a hot climate. This overall trend certainly applied to many parts of the body. You can imagine the discomfort of excessive underarm or pubic hair in a scorching environment, making removal a practical choice. The barber's sharp blades and knowledge of depilatory methods would have been employed to achieve a sleek, clean appearance, enhancing comfort and cleanliness. However, it's also important to remember that not all cultures, even within ancient Nubia, had a monolithic view. While general hairlessness was often valued, there might have been specific contexts or subcultures where a certain amount of body hair was considered acceptable, or even a sign of natural virility or maturity. For instance, while priests or those engaging in specific rituals might have been entirely shaven for purity, a warrior might have maintained a more natural look, or a particular type of body hair in specific areas might have been considered a sign of strength. It's like how today some athletes might shave their legs for performance, while others prefer to keep their natural hair. Artistic depictions, while often stylized, generally show a preference for smooth bodies, particularly in formal or religious contexts. This suggests that the ideal aesthetic leanings were towards hairlessness, but the reality for the average person might have been less stringent or dependent on individual choice and social group. Historians still argue whether the absence of body hair in many artistic representations is a reflection of actual universal practice, or simply an idealized portrayal of beauty. It's tricky because art often depicts ideals, not necessarily everyday reality. The barber, in this context, was not just a hairstylist, but a body aesthetician capable of performing comprehensive grooming services. They would have understood the nuances of their clients' preferences and societal expectations regarding body hair, whether it was the meticulous removal of every strand or the selective maintenance of certain areas. The barber's skill ensured the client conformed to their desired public display. So, as you drift into the deeper currents of sleep, consider the subtle complexities of ancient Nubian body hair practices, a surprising reflection of cultural norms and personal expression. Now that we've meticulously groomed the physical form, let's add some sparkle. Our next step takes us into the world of ancient Nubian aesthetics. Cosmetic applications, embellishment. In Nubia, personal adornment was not just about clothes or jewelry. It extended to the skin and hair, with barbers often playing a pivotal role in the application of various oils, pigments, and perfumes. This wasn't just vanity, it was an integral part of their culture, expressing beauty, status, and sometimes even protection. Imagine a Nubian barber, not just wielding a razor, but also preparing small pots of rich, earthy pigments, or uncorking vials of fragrant oils. After a meticulous shave or haircut, the ritual of embellishment would begin. For skin, various oils were applied, not just for moisturizing in the dry climate, but also for their aromatic properties. These oils, often infused with local plants and resins, would leave the skin supple, glowing, and delightfully scented. Think of it as a luxurious, all-natural body butter and perfume, all rolled into one. It's a far cry from today's quick spritz of deodorant. This was a deliberate, sensual application. Pigments were used to enhance features. Kohl, a dark eye paint was widely used by both men and women, not just for beauty, but also to reduce glare from the intense sun and potentially as a mild antiseptic. Imagine the barber carefully outlining the eyes, giving them a striking, elongated look that you see in so much ancient art. Red ochre, a natural earth pigment, might have been used to tint lips or cheeks, or even mixed with oils to create a rich, reddish-brown body paint for special occasions. These weren't just simple makeup routines, they were complex applications requiring a steady hand and an artistic eye. Hair, too, received its share of cosmetic attention. After styling, hair might be oiled to give it a lustrous sheen, or even dyed using natural plant extracts. Remember those elaborate wigs? They would have been similarly treated, scented, and perhaps even adorned with glittering mineral powders. The barber acted as a beautician, ensuring every client left not only perfectly groomed, but also exquisitely embellished, ready to face the world with confidence and flair. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of cosmetics in Nubia was primarily for aesthetic purposes, or if it also served as a protective barrier against the elements and insects. It was undoubtedly a combination. The act of applying these cosmetics was often part of a daily ritual, a moment of self-care and transformation. So, as you settle deeper into your dreams, picture the ancient Nubian barber meticulously applying oils and pigments, transforming their clients into walking masterpieces of ancient embellishment. Having been pampered with oils and pigments, let's now consider the daily backdrop against which all this grooming took place. Hygiene rituals, cleansing, and care. For the ancient Nubians, personal cleanliness wasn't a chore. It was a profound, multi-layered practice deeply woven into the fabric of their daily lives, driven by both practical needs and spiritual beliefs. Imagine the heat, the dust, the sheer effort of ancient life. In such conditions, staying clean wasn't just pleasant, it was essential for health and well-being. The Nile, as we discussed, was their ever-present source of water, making daily bathing a readily accessible and common practice. You can picture people heading to the riverbanks at dawn or dusk, washing away the grime of the day, perhaps scrubbing with abrasive sands or natural sponges. It's a bit like a communal outdoor shower, but with a much grander, more majestic backdrop. Beyond the full body wash, smaller rituals would have dotted the day. Hand washing before meals, rinsing mouths, and perhaps even eye washes were likely commonplace. This wasn't just about removing dirt. It was also about purification, especially before engaging in religious activities or social gatherings. A clean body was often seen as a prerequisite for approaching the divine or interacting respectfully with others. The barber, in this context, was an expert in cleansing and care. Their services weren't limited to hair and skin. They would have offered a holistic approach to hygiene. This might include preparing special washes for the hair, perhaps made from plant extracts that acted as early shampoos or conditioners, leaving the hair soft and manageable. They might have used various tools for scraping or scrubbing the skin, promoting exfoliation and circulation. Think of it as an ancient spa treatment, albeit perhaps a slightly less luxurious one than you might be used to. They also understood the importance of clean tools. While advanced sterilization wasn't a concept, barbers would have routinely cleaned their razors and combs, perhaps by washing them in water, rubbing them with ash or sand, or even passing them through fire for a brief moment. This rudimentary form of hygiene was critical in preventing the spread of skin infections. Historians still argue whether specific plant-based antiseptics were consciously used in daily hygiene, or if their benefits were discovered through trial and error. What's clear is that the pursuit of cleanliness was a deliberate and sophisticated effort. So, as you drift further into your slumber, consider the ancient Nubians' meticulous hygiene rituals, a testament to their deep-seated appreciation for purity and well-being. Now that we've explored the individual acts of grooming, let's imagine the broader environment where these transformations took place. Barbershops, social hubs. Forget the quiet individual cubicles of modern salons. In ancient Nubia, the barber's domain was often a vibrant, bustling place, a dynamic social centre where more than just hair was cut and styled. Picture a shaded courtyard, perhaps under a broad acacia tree, or a semi-open structure in a busy marketplace. The air would be alive, with the murmur of conversations, the soft shush of a blade on skin, the gentle clink of tools, and perhaps the faint scent of oils and perfumes. People wouldn't just pop in for a quick trim. They would linger, catching up on local gossip, discussing trade routes, or simply enjoying the communal atmosphere. It was essentially the ancient version of a coffee shop meets community centre, with a side of sharp objects. These spaces weren't just practical, they were integral to the social fabric of the community. Here, news was exchanged, alliances forged, and sometimes even disputes mediated. The barber, by virtue of their intimate access to clients and their trusted position, would often be privy to a great deal of information, becoming a silent keeper of secrets and a well-informed observer of daily life. You can imagine someone whispering a local scandal while getting their beard trimmed, knowing the barber would hear everything but say nothing. The physical setup would have been relatively simple but effective. Sturdy stools or benches for clients, perhaps a basin for water, and a small table or stand for the barber's array of gleaming tools and aromatic oils. The emphasis would have been on functionality and creating a comfortable, inviting atmosphere reflecting the respect accorded to the barber and their craft. It might not have had a spinning barber's pole, but the steady flow of clients would have been its own advertisement. Historians still argue whether dedicated, permanent barber shops were widespread or if many barbers operated on a more itinerant basis, travelling from home to home or setting up temporary stations in markets. It's likely both models existed, with fixed shops, perhaps serving more affluent urban areas. What's undeniable is the social importance of these spaces, whether permanent or temporary. They were places of interaction, relaxation, and transformation. So, as you settle deeper into your peaceful slumber, envision the lively hum of an ancient Nubian barbershop, a true social hub where community and personal care intertwined. You've just left the lively social hub of the Nubian barbershop, feeling refreshed and perfectly groomed. Now, let's delve into the very core of the interaction that made this possible: client relationships, trust, and intimacy. This wasn't a mere transactional exchange. The bond between a Nubian barber and their client was often one of profound trust, personal familiarity, and even a degree of intimacy, given the nature of the service. Imagine sitting still, vulnerable, as an incredibly sharp piece of iron or bronze glides millimeters from your jugular. This demands an immense amount of trust, doesn't it? The client had to have absolute faith in the barber's skill, steadiness of hand, and meticulous attention to detail. This trust wasn't just earned, it was built over countless sessions, with successful shaves and stylish haircuts reinforcing the barber's reputation. It's like trusting your surgeon, or even your dentist. You put your well-being directly in their very capable hands. Beyond the practical necessity of trust, the nature of the service fostered a unique intimacy. A barber worked in close proximity to their client, touching their skin, their hair, applying oils and treatments. They would have been keenly aware of their client's moods, their health, a new rash, a scar, and even their anxieties. This physical closeness naturally led to a more personal connection. You can imagine hushed conversations, shared jokes, or perhaps even moments of quiet reflection as the barber focused on their craft. Because of this intimate access, barbers often became confidants. They heard gossip, personal woes, triumphs, and secrets that clients might not share with anyone else. They were like the ancient world's therapists, but with better razors. This unique position meant they were often sources of information and advice, respected for their discretion and their understanding of human nature. Historians still argue whether barbers were ever explicitly sworn to secrecy, but the social expectation of discretion was certainly strong, crucial for maintaining their trusted position within the community. The relationship often extended beyond the mere act of grooming. Barbers might have offered advice on personal care, recommended remedies for skin ailments, or even provided a comforting presence during times of stress. This wasn't just a service, it was a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. So, as you drift further into your dream, picture the silent, knowing glances exchanged between a Nubian barber and their client. A bond forged not just by a shared experience, but by a deep and abiding trust. From the intricate trust between barber and client, our attention now shifts to how this remarkable craft was perpetuated through the generations. Apprenticeship, passing the blade. In ancient Nubia, knowledge wasn't confined to textbooks or formal schools. It was lived, breathed, and meticulously transferred from master to student through a rigorous, hands-on apprenticeship system. This was the beating heart of their artisanal legacy, ensuring the sophisticated skills of Nubian barbering continued to flourish. Imagine a young Nubian, perhaps a teenager, eager and wide-eyed, beginning their journey under the tutelage of an experienced master barber. This wasn't just about learning to cut hair. It was an education in artistry, hygiene, chemistry for their oils and dyes, and even social etiquette. The apprentice would start with the basics, likely sweeping the floor, cleaning tools, and observing intently. You can almost hear the master's calm instructions, the gentle corrections, and the encouraging nods when a task was performed correctly. It's a bit like learning to play a musical instrument. You start with scales before you can compose a symphony. The early stages would have involved practicing on less sensitive clients, perhaps even on animal hides or hair from discarded wigs, learning the feel of the blade, the angle of the cut, and the rhythm of the stroke. As their dexterity improved, they would progress to more challenging tasks, preparing the skin for shaving, applying oils, sharpening tools to perfection, and eventually performing simple trims on actual clients under the master's watchful eye. This gradual progression ensured that by the time an apprentice was ready to wield a razor independently, they possessed not just technical skill, but also the confidence and judgment required for such a precise art. This system of learning fostered a deep respect for the craft and for the master who imparted it. The apprentice would live and work closely with their mentor, absorbing not just explicit instructions, but also the subtle nuances of the trade, the unspoken wisdom that comes from years of experience. They would learn discretion, patience, and the importance of a steady hand. Historians still argue whether these apprenticeships were formal, paid arrangements, or more akin to familial transfers of skill, but the outcome was always the same: highly skilled professionals. The passing of the blade was symbolic. When an apprentice finally became a master, it was a moment of pride, signifying not just their technical proficiency, but their readiness to uphold the high standards of Nubian barbering. They were now prepared to become pillars of their community, trusted guardians of appearance and well-being. So, as you drift further into your slumber, picture the ancient apprentice, diligently learning at the side of their master, ensuring the sharp legacy of Nubian barbers would continue for generations to come. Now, let's step up the ladder of prestige and focus on an exclusive tier of ancient Nubian barbers: royal barbers, elite service. Imagine the finest artisans, the most skilled and trusted practitioners, not just serving the general populace, but attending to the kings, queens, and high nobility of Nubia. This wasn't merely a job, it was a revered position within the royal court, demanding unparalleled skill, absolute discretion, and unwavering loyalty. Picture a royal barber, perhaps in the opulent chambers of a palace in Kerma or Meroe, surrounded by luxurious fabrics and exotic scents. Their tools would be of the highest quality, gleaming iron or polished bronze, perhaps with handles inlaid with gold or precious stones. Every stroke would be precise, every application of oil or pigment performed with an artist's touch. This was grooming elevated to a ceremonial art form, reflecting the divine status of the ruler. You can almost feel the hushed reverence in the air, the careful movements, the unspoken understanding between barber and monarch. It's like having a personal stylist who also holds the keys to the kingdom's secrets. The services provided would have been comprehensive. Beyond regular shaves and hair trims, royal barbers would be responsible for maintaining the king's wigs, which were often elaborate and symbolic, reflecting his power and connection to the gods. They would also apply specific cosmetics, perhaps for ritualistic purposes, or to enhance the ruler's imposing appearance. Think of the painstaking preparation involved before a king appeared in public or for a sacred ceremony. Every detail had to be perfect, reflecting the divine order and the king's absolute authority. Being a royal barber came with immense privileges and responsibilities. They would have lived in close proximity to the ruling family, gaining intimate knowledge of court life, political intrigues, and personal habits. Their discretion was paramount. A careless word could have dire consequences. This proximity also meant they were often trusted advisors, privy to private conversations, and perhaps even offering counsel on matters beyond grooming. Historians still argue whether royal barbers ever held official administrative roles, or if their influence was purely informal, derived from their trusted position. The prestige of this role meant that the royal barber was likely a highly educated and refined individual, deeply versed in court etiquette and the subtleties of royal protocol. They were not just craftsmen, they were courtiers, performing a vital service that reinforced the image and authority of the Nubian rulers. So, as you drift into the quietude of sleep, imagine the meticulous artistry and profound trust inherent in the role of a Nubian royal barber, attending to the very essence of ancient power. From the regal courts, let's descend into the realm where the barber's craft intertwined with the sacred, ritualistic shaving, sacred practices. In ancient Nubia, as in many ancient cultures, the removal of hair, especially shaving, often transcended mere hygiene or aesthetics. It was a deeply symbolic act, an integral part of religious ceremonies, purification rites, and transitions. Imagine stepping into a temple precinct, the air thick with incense, the rhythmic chanting of priests echoing through the stone columns. Here, before approaching the deities or participating in sacred rituals, individuals might undergo a complete body shave. This wasn't about fashion, it was about purity. Hair, in many ancient belief systems, was seen as connected to the earthly realm, to the mundane, or even to impurities. Removing it was a way of shedding the profane and preparing oneself to enter the sacred, a symbolic act of renewal and spiritual cleansing. Priests, in particular, were often required to be entirely hairless from head to toe. This permanent state of purity underscored their dedication to the gods and their role as intermediaries between the divine and the mortal worlds. You can envision a solemn ceremony where a new priest undergoes his ritual shave, a transformative act marking his commitment to a life of spiritual devotion. It's like a monk shaving his head as a sign of renunciation, a clear, visible commitment to a different path. Beyond priests, individuals might also undergo ritual shaving at key life stages, before marriage, after childbirth, or during periods of mourning. These acts marked transitions, signifying a new beginning or a profound change in status. A new mother might shave her head as an offering, or a symbol of her transformation, or a mourner might remove their hair as a sign of grief and detachment from the world. The barber's role in these sacred practices was solemn and significant. They weren't just barbers. They were facilitators of spiritual transformation. Their skill in achieving a precise, clean shave was crucial, as any nick or imperfection could be seen as an ill omen or a flaw in the purification process. They were essentially performing a sacred duty, ensuring the individual was prepared, physically and symbolically, for their encounter with the divine or their transition into a new phase of life. Historians still argue whether specific tools were reserved exclusively for ritualistic shaving, or if regular implements were simply consecrated for such purposes. What's clear is the profound spiritual significance attached to the barber's touch in these sacred moments. So, as you drift further into your peaceful slumber, consider the quiet reverence surrounding ritualistic shaving in ancient Nubia, a profound intersection of cleanliness, craft, and faith. From the living world's rituals, let's now journey into the realm of the eternal, where the barber's influence extended even beyond life itself, afterlife grooming, eternal beauty. For the ancient Nubians, death was not an end, but a transition, a journey to the afterlife. And just like in life, appearing well-groomed and beautiful was crucial for this journey, ensuring a favourable reception in the next world. This meant that the barber's skills were even required for the deceased. Imagine the solemn preparations for burial. After the body was carefully preserved, whether through mummification or other methods, attention would turn to its appearance. Just as the living desired smooth skin and stylish hair, or wigs, the dead were prepared to face the gods and ancestors in their most idealized form. This wasn't about making a corpse look alive, it was about presenting the deceased as a perfected, eternally beautiful being, ready for their perpetual existence. The barber's tools and techniques would have been employed to ensure the deceased was impeccably groomed. This could involve a final shave, a meticulous application of oils and perfumes to the skin, and the careful styling of hair or the placement of an elaborate wig. You can picture the skilled hands working with a reverence that transcended the absence of life, transforming the body into an eternal masterpiece. It's a bit like laying out your best clothes for an important event, but this event is the most important one of all. For royalty and elites, this afterlife grooming would have been incredibly elaborate. Their burial chambers were often filled with possessions deemed necessary for the afterlife, and among these would be grooming tools, cosmetics, and often beautifully crafted wigs. This ensured that even in death, the individual could maintain their status and beauty, continuing to present themselves impeccably in the eternal realm. These items weren't just symbolic, they were seen as active provisions for continued existence. Historians still argue whether the barbers who performed these rites were specialized mortuary barbers, or if general barbers simply extended their services to the deceased. What is certain is that the practice underscores the deep cultural importance of appearance and hygiene in Nubian society, extending even into the mystical realm of the afterlife. The belief was that your earthly presentation echoed into your eternal state. So, as you finally drift into the deepest sleep, consider the enduring power of ancient Nubian grooming, a legacy of eternal beauty that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Having navigated the living and the dead, let's take a broader view and reflect on the enduring impact of these ancient artisans, the legacy of the Nubian barber. Their story isn't just a quaint historical footnote, it's a testament to human ingenuity, cultural values, and the timeless importance of personal care. Their practices, tools, and social standing left an indelible mark, influencing not just their own society, but potentially inspiring grooming traditions in other ancient civilizations. Consider the innovation. From rough stones to gleaming iron, the Nubian barber was at the forefront of technological advancement in personal care. Their relentless pursuit of sharper blades, more effective depilatories, and elaborate styling techniques speaks to a culture that valued progress and perfection in even the seemingly mundane aspects of life. You can imagine modern cosmetic scientists looking back at their techniques and thinking, wow, they were really onto something, even without all our fancy tech. Their influence wasn't just technical, it was social. The elevated status of barbers, their role as confidants, and their integration into the social fabric of communities highlight a sophisticated appreciation for skilled craftsmanship and trusted service. They weren't just service providers, they were respected professionals, essential to the well-being and appearance of individuals from all walks of life, from the common villager to the king himself. This respect for the barber's craft is a legacy that resonates even today in the pride of modern stylists and barbers. Furthermore, the Nubian emphasis on hygiene and aesthetics, as facilitated by their barbers, reveals a culture that understood the intrinsic link between cleanliness, health, and spiritual well-being. This wasn't just about looking good, it was about feeling good, about being purified for sacred acts, and about presenting oneself respectfully to both the living and the divine. Historians still argue whether some of Nubian grooming practices directly influenced those of ancient Egypt, or if they developed concurrently due to shared environmental and cultural pressures. What's undeniable is the strong similarities and the likely cross-pollination of ideas. The discovery of their sophisticated tools, the intricate hairstyles depicted in their art, and the very structure of their society, which gave barbers such an important role, all paint a picture of a civilization that held personal grooming in exceptionally high regard. Their legacy reminds us that self-care is not a modern invention, but a deeply human pursuit, stretching back thousands of years. So, as you drift further into the embrace of sleep, reflect on the enduring sharpness and lasting impact of the ancient Nubian barber, a quiet but powerful force in the annals of history. We've almost reached the end of our journey, but before we fully succumb to slumber, let's spend a moment to truly appreciate the incredible detail and dedication of these ancient professionals, focusing on the finer points of their craft. Beyond the cut, details and artistry. While we've spoken of sharp blades and elaborate wigs, it's in the subtle refinements, the minute applications, and the sheer artistic vision that the Nubian barber truly shone. Imagine the precision required for things we might take for granted. Consider the perfect part in a hairstyle, so straight it looks like it was drawn with a ruler. Or the intricate patterns shaved into a man's scalp, perhaps tribal marks, or symbolic designs, requiring a steady hand and an artist's eye for negative space. These weren't haphazard hacks. They were deliberate works of art, transforming the human body into a living canvas. You can almost feel the gentle tug as a single strand is carefully placed, or the feather-light touch of a brush applying a subtle pigment. Think about the specialized tools beyond just razors and combs. Perhaps tiny tweezers made of bronze for plucking stray hairs, or miniature spatulas for applying delicate eye makeup. Each tool would have been designed for a specific, often minute, task, allowing for an incredible level of detail in their grooming. This wasn't just about efficiency, it was about achieving a flawless finish, a testament to their unwavering commitment to aesthetic perfection. The barber also understood the nuances of different hair textures and skin types. They would have known which oils were best for a dry scalp, or which depilatory was most effective yet gentle for sensitive skin. This empirical knowledge, passed down through generations, made them experts in their field, capable of customizing their approach to each individual client. It's like a modern-day dermatologist who also happens to be a master hairstylist and makeup artist. Historians still debate the exact recipes for all their various concoctions, from scented oils to hair dyes, but the evidence points to a sophisticated understanding of natural ingredients and their properties. The barber was, in essence, a chemist and an artist, blending compounds to achieve desired effects, whether it was a lustrous sheen, a vibrant colour, or a soothing balm. It's all about the details, isn't it? The difference between looking good and looking truly magnificent often lies in those meticulous, almost imperceptible finishing touches. So, as you drift into the quiet embrace of the night, appreciate the subtle artistry and profound dedication that went far beyond just a simple cut for the ancient Nubian barber. Now, as the echoes of ancient Nubian barbers fade into the soft hum of the night, let's allow ourselves to fully relax, to let the vivid images of golden sands, sharp blades, and intricate hairstyles gently dissolve. You've journeyed through millennia of grooming practices, witnessing the dedication, artistry, and societal importance of these remarkable individuals. Feel the last remnants of the day's tensions gently release, like grains of sand slipping through your fingers. The vibrant reds and purples of the Nubian sunset are now a deep velvety indigo, merging seamlessly with the quiet darkness of your room. The rhythmic lapping of the Nile against its banks has softened to a gentle whisper, a lullaby inviting you deeper into tranquility. You've seen the ingenuity of their tools, from the very first rudimentary snips to the formidable sharpness of iron, and understood the profound significance of every cut, every oil application, every sculpted style. Remember the trust shared between the barber and client, a bond as strong as any and vital for survival. Recall the bustling social hubs where stories and secrets were exchanged, where community thrived around the ritual of personal care. Think of the solemnity of ritualistic shaving, the preparation for an eternal journey, and the enduring legacy of a people who valued beauty and hygiene with such profound depth. The knowledge of their craft, passed from master to apprentice, ensures their story lives on, even if only in the quiet corners of your imagination. Let your breathing become slow and even, a gentle rhythm that matches the quiet pulse of the night. The sharp edges of history are softening now, blending into the comforting softness of your blankets. There's nothing left to do but surrender to the stillness, letting your mind gently float free. The ancient Nubians, with their unbelievably sharp tools and their profound appreciation for the art of appearance, have completed their story for tonight. They have taught us that even in the seemingly mundane act of grooming, there lies a rich tapestry of culture, innovation, and human connection. Let those ancient whispers guide you now, deeper and deeper, into a restorative, peaceful slumber.